Reddit. What's the most ultimate petty revenge you've seen or been a part of? My name is Ryan from Askreddit Tells, and today we're going to be looking at that. But before we do, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to keep the channel healthy. You youngins might not believe it, but back in the early 90s, supermarket cashiers had to type every price in by hand. I was at Vaughn's in San Diego, walking towards the only open check-in stand with a single bottle of soda in my hand. Suddenly, this hoity-toity lady with a cart stacked to the top flew out one of the aisles like a freight train and cut me off. "I'm in a hurry," she said, then looked away like she was annoyed that I'd been born. I looked at the cashier, he rolled his eyes and got to work. 5 minutes later, she's walking out the door and it's my turn. "You're good," says the cashier. "I put your soda on her tag." Damn, that felt good. I used to deliver pizza for Domino's. It was my last shift, and there was this house that was always rude. I called to ask what the house looked like, and they said, "I gave you the address," and hung up. Never tipped, etc. I got to their house, and they gave me a check for 1 cent less than what the total was. I said, "I'm gonna need the extra penny." They grumbled off and took their time hoping I would give up, but just sat there holding the pizza. They finally came back all pissed off and gave me the penny. Note that they had no intention of tipping. They gave me the penny and I chunked it out into the street and left. They saw me do it. It was satisfying as hell. I occasionally deliver pizza as a part-time job. There is a customer that tends to pay with a big bag of change. I don't mean a bag full of quarters, I mean a bag full of dimes, nickels, and pennies. Since his meal typically costs about $20, the bag usually weighs several pounds. It's a total pain to count out all of the change, so typically drivers will just assume that he has change. So typically drivers will just assume the correct amount and leave. Usually he has just enough or maybe a few cents over. I don't think it's an innocent thing either, as he usually gives the bag of change with a really big grin. It's such a pain that most of the drivers know his address by heart and avoid going to the house if at all by possible. I was having a bad night, and by the luck of the draw, I got this dude's house. I remember reading a post on r/petty revenge involving someone paying in a checkout line with a bag of change, and I knew I could use a similar method to take my frustration out on this guy in the pettiest way possible. I pulled up to his house and left the pizza in the car. I rang the doorbell, and when he answered, I saw the large bag of change in his hand that I knew would be there. He asked where his pizza was, and I said, "New policy, sir. Gotta count it out before we can give out the pizza." So I sat down on his doorstep and started to count out all of his change. At one point, I even asked if he could turn on his porch light because I was having a hard time seeing. He did end up sitting there while I counted out the entire bag of change. Even though it took about 10 minutes, he ended up being about $1 over, so I started picking up pennies to give him his change back. When he said that I could keep the rest as a tip, when I gave him his pizza, he sheepishly told me sorry and then shut the door. The whole situation was incredibly awkward, and to my knowledge, he hasn't ordered pizza from us in a while. Oh well. I used to deliver pizza, and one time I had a delivery to a brownstone house with a small stoop. It was either Christmas or Thanksgiving week, and we had snow/ice a couple of days beforehand. Well, I pull up, and there must have been some sort of family gathering at the house who ordered the food, because there were a handful of people smoking and talking outside. When I got out of the car, one of the people on the porch opened up the door and yelled into whoever was supposed to come out and pay for the food. The woman came to the door as I was walking up to the sidewalk. I was carrying a 24-cut pie with a couple of bags filled with wings or whatever inside. I had a decent amount of food in my hands, but as I was walking, I slipped on ice and fell onto the sidewalk, while everyone was watching. The massive pizza fell face down, box open onto the icy sidewalk, to the horror of the hungry onlookers. I remember being on the ground, in the process of getting up, picking the pizza up off the ground, and hearing this woman screaming at me. She was so mad that I dropped her food. She didn't offer to help me up. She didn't ask if I was okay. She didn't apologize for having ice on her sidewalk. She just flipped out on me. So now I'm standing there with a mutilated pizza, hearing this old woman ream me in front of her family. I apologized as soon as I fell, but she didn't care. For at least 20 to 30 seconds, she went in on me for dropping the pizza. So I threw the pizza at her feet onto her porch and got into my car and left. I took the chicken wings with me so I had some sort of proof that I didn't deliver the food and I didn't get paid for it. I have a lot of stories from delivering. For some reason, this stuck with me for like 10 years now. Edit. Hey, my first gold, boy. I knew delivering pizzas would pay off in the long run. Thank you. Oh my god, that's horrific. I remember one time the delivery guy slipped as I was shutting the door. Sidewalks are hard to keep clear midwinter. It was a panicked toss the box to the side and rush out to see if he was okay and help him up, because that tip was not worth a broken anything. I'm so sorry that happened to you. What a horrible person. Sort of related. I was making a delivery when I was a pizza delivery guy and I pulled into a subdivision and saw a woman with her car stuck in the ditch. I pulled over and told her I was going to drop off the pizza, then come back to help. So I did that. Helped pull her car out of the ditch. When I got back to the store, my manager told me that I forgot something on the delivery. So I went back out with what I supposedly forgot to bring, and the guy I delivered to met me outside the house. He had seen what I did and made that call to get me back out and give me a tip. He gave me a $100 tip. That was the best tip I got in the 4 years I delivered pizza. Sounds like this should be on the Random Acts of Kindness video. Knew a crazy kid in elementary. Kid jumped across the table and tried to choke me out. I got suspended because I instigated it by saying he was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, when that was the only thing that the kid ever talked about and was wearing a Cocoa Puff shirt that day. Senior year of high school, kid was in my design class. Needed to get a C or better on the final. Over the year, I found out the kid was taking my work off my share drive. High school IT was dumb, and each kid's folder was public, and copying it for the final. I purposefully messed up the drawing in my folder, but the kid didn't double check it. He turned it in and failed and had to go back and be a super senior. Too long didn't read? Kid choked me, waited 10 years, made them fail high school. Edit. I turned in an A+ DWG. Left in a bad DWG in its place. Early in a game of Civ 5, Alexander stole Petra from me at the last second. So I built a special city in the frozen wastes, blocked it in with my own cities, gifted it to him, then burned the rest of his empires to the ground. It took about 5 hours. I like to think he learned his lesson, but that forward-settling mess still looks smug as ever. My little brother and his girlfriend came to stay at my house for the weekend, and the girlfriend was super self-centered and obnoxious. When they left, she forgot her clothes and toiletries because she left them sprawled all over my bathroom. About a week later, she and my brother moved into an apartment together. After he paid for the moving truck, deposit, and utilities, she cheated on him with her ex and kicked him out of the apartment. This left him broke, homeless, and heartbroken. In the days after the breakup, she kept calling and emailing him several times per day, demanding that he ask me to ship her clothes and toiletries back to her. I mean, it's really important. It's my North Face. My brother called and pleaded with me to have it shipped to her, so she would stop having a reason to contact him. Being the loving sister that I am, I gathered up really important North Face sweatshirt, shorts, underwear, shampoo, conditioner, soap and razor. I folded everything nicely. Then I wrote a nice note apologizing for taking so long to mail them to her, and let her know that I hope all is well. The note was written in permanent marker, and the paper happened to be resting on the really important North Face when I wrote it. Unfortunately, the ink bled straight through the paper and onto the shirt. Also unfortunately, the shampoo, soap, and conditioner caps were not tightly secured on their bottles, and the contents leaked out all over the clothes, further spreading the ink. The most unfortunate result, though, was that her razor didn't have any sort of protective cap or container, and left little slashes all over the front of the really important North Face. Now, this was a couple years back when I was in college. My friend, we'll call her Susie, and I were both going into our second years. So was her boyfriend Brad. His real name because... F you, Brad. So Susie finds out that she has herpes. The only guy she has ever been with is Brad. Naturally, she's devastated to find out he's been cheating. we find out that she's not the only one he infected. There are about, in fact, at least 5 other women we find out about. What's more, we find out Brad has known that he is positive and still going around and hooking up with people and saying that he's healthy. Basically, his attitude that someone gave it to him, so why would it be wrong for him to spread it too? Yeah, Brad is a butthole of epic proportions. Susie is just devastated and can't get out of her funk, and what she now has to deal with health-wise. Now, there is an urban legend where as revenge, a woman hid, I think, shrimp in her cheating SO's curtain rods, and when she was forced to move out of their apartment, the story has been featured on many shows about urban legends. It just so happened to come on late night when me and Susie were watching TV. Problem was, Brad had 5 roommates, so no way that was going to work. But wait, Brad has a car, and Brad is too broke to afford a new car anytime soon. She knows the door code to unlock the vehicle, and I just so happen to know how to remove certain vehicle panels, to access holes in other panels that it would be impossible to get shrimp out of. Plus, he worked the early shift on Wednesday. Lucky it's Tuesday night. So off we go to the store to buy the clearance section of seafood out. We are talking ground beef, shrimp, imitation crab meat, various kinds of fish, and deviled eggs. Oh, and during this lovely time of September, our little town was experiencing a triple-digit heat wave. So off we go into the middle of the night, when it's still 90 degrees out, and get to work. Luckily for us, Brad lives in a shitty apartment with no security cameras and other tenants who don't care about 2 women working on a vehicle at 1 a.m. Sure enough, the door key code still works, so we pop out these little covers on the door panels that access the interior of the door. It goes the tiny little shrimps, then we remove the plastic panels from the wheel wells, and in goes some ground beef and deviled eggs. Next was his liftgate. Anyway, you get the idea. We put his car back together and off we go. Over the next few days, the smell just got worse and worse. The apartment complex manager asked him to move out the car off grounds because of the smell. Our town also had some mean feral cats that roam around, so they just loved hanging around his car. So not only did it stink, but he risked being attacked by some mean-ass feral cats. He would have to always have the windows cracked open at least a little bit. Best part is, Brad and I have the same major, so over the next 3 years I see him a lot. He became notorious for his horrible smelling car. He couldn't afford to replace it, no one would buy it, no matter how many times he had it cleaned, the smell remained. And no one could figure out where the odor was coming from. Eventually they had figured out that most of the panels would need to be completely replaced because the only access is tiny holes. To this day, people still ask him about his car on Facebook. Like, if he says he'll pick people up and they ask him if he has a new car. Nope, the Stinkmobile. He currently works at Starbucks, so that thing isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Kind of like his herpes. I like to think of it as my ultimate Sherlock Holmes level petty revenge prank. I will never top the awesomeness of this one. It was my masterpiece. Too long didn't read? Guy knowingly gave my friend herpes, so we took parts of his car off and hid various meats and fish inside during a heat wave. F you, Brad. I hope you see this and know the brilliance of our petty revenge. Edit 1. Thanks for the Reddit gold, and thank you Reddit for making this my highest rated comment about how I hid fish/meat in some butthole's car. Our petty revenge. For those asking, she didn't want to file charges as it would become public record. We didn't want to report him anonymously to the CDC. Someone did go and talk to him and that he'd been named in several complaints. We encouraged other women we knew to do the same. One woman filed a lawsuit against him, but it's hard to prove in the court of law that he did it intentionally, so nothing came of it. Your own personal doctor or your local Planned Parenthood, if you live in the US, can provide you with information of STD/STIs and how to prevent the spread or prevent contracting something. Planned Parenthood also provides low-cost or free screenings. Many adults do not display symptoms, so it's worth getting checked out on a regular basis. It doesn't hurt to do it, but it could hurt not to. Stay safe out there, Redditors. Well, that brings us to the end of our video. I don't encourage any of you to be a brat and go spread STIs, but I do encourage all of you to go spread this video to your friends and families, because that share button really helps out our channel. As always, my name's Ryan from Askreddit Tells, and if you liked what you saw, check out some of our other stuff and subscribe. As always, I look forward to seeing you in the next video.